Hi, Zarina. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I am so glad to have you on this new segment we're doing called the Wayfinders because, as you know, you have been a huge part of helping me find my way. I don't even know how long we've been working together. I don't even know when I started. When did I start seeing you?
Gonna have to check.
Yeah, I feel like
It's
it's
been a
been
while.
all this year for sure. Maybe the
Hmm.
end of last year.
Yeah.
So we've built quite the relationship and rapport at this point. I see you frequently, but you have been, like I said, such a huge part of finding my way with your work. You're a hypnotherapist, you do energy clearing, you do coaching, you do all kinds of different things that I know you're going to get into when you talk about your business. But, you've really helped me tap into my subconscious. I'd started with your traditional talk therapy. And after I felt like I talked everything out, I was like, now what? Because there's still things that are coming up in my life. How do I fix them? How do I recognize them? How do I honor them, but also maybe pivot and change into the highest version of myself that I want to be? Given all the things that have happened in my life. And, working with you, what I've learned is we have so much in our subconscious that fires off all the time. And we just are so unaware of it when so much of our existence is our subconscious and so little of it is our conscious. And that's why it's so important to be aware of what's going on deep down behind the scenes. And you've pulled out some crazy shit, girl. So but it's all been amazing. So I just want to first and foremost thank you for being here. Thank you for helping me, healing me, continuing to help and heal me. And I'm just so grateful that you are on here to talk about all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel, for that lovely intro. And also thank you for having me. I mean, I wouldn't miss an opportunity to talk about this work because it's so deeply meaningful to me. I mean, it changed my life many years ago, and I just, want to pay it forward. So I'm so glad our paths crossed. And I'm excited to dive right in.
Yeah, so right away you mentioned this really helped you. So the work that you do now, how did you get into it? Was it because it was something that you needed and so you had it for yourself and you were inspired by it? I would love to hear the path to the path that took you to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. I basically started, on the other side of the table, so to speak, as a client many years ago, almost a decade perhaps, and found myself at a crossroads of sorts in my life where I guess I had just been ignoring my truth for many, many years. And I had been, now when I look back, I realize how unconsciously I had been living my life, just basically at the mercy of my subconscious patterns that I never consciously chose,
Mhm.
at the mercy of emotional baggage, unprocessed, stuff from the past, and all my subconscious coping mechanisms, all the things. And, I think everything reached a point where I could no longer sweep anything under the rug because, I mean, there was just no space. And that's when I really kind of, started seeing a hypnotherapist. I started, seeing a coach. I started like kind of dabbling in the wellness and mental health kind of space. And, it wasn't something that like it was a flip switching or a breakthrough or like one session and my life changed. I mean, I know that's what we kind of deep down want, but I feel like just the act of seeking that support, the act of slowly and gradually getting those harsh reality checks, in a very loving and compassionate way, but still one of those reality checks that one needs every so often of, this is your life. You have agency, you have choice, you have power, and you may have given away your power to the people around you, the relationships around you, the situation you're finding yourself in over and over again, to your emotions, to your reactions, and all the things. But at the end of the day, you are the one who's truly in control. So that was, I think, a huge turning point in my life. And I, going through this work and starting my journey, I never had it in my mind that I would ever do this, professionally or do this with other people. I was just trying to kind of show up for myself and support myself at the time. And I had spent about 7 years in the corporate sector in marketing and market research and, doing all the things. And it never really resonated with me, but I just didn't know what else there was for me, because this was like that path that had been, nobody handed it to me, so to speak, but it's just, those societal expectations also that kind of, in a very unspoken way, also get deeply embedded. And so it was a point in my life where, I had lost my way, so to speak, and I found myself in a spot where I had been ignoring my truth for very, very long. And what kind of fueled that was a lot of shame, a lot of embarrassment, a lot of like, what will people like, my life on paper is ticking all the boxes, but why am I still feeling a certain kind of way? And so long story short, I could talk about this all day, but long story short, I, started seeking that support. And as a client, I really saw the shifts and I really saw the shift in my mindset and in my life. And little by little, I realized that this is where true transformation happens. I, eventually started dabbling in trainings and certifications for myself at first. And eventually, one thing just led to another and it happened very organically. And I started seeing clients. And I guess fast forward to, I started also realizing, once I dabbled in this work, this field a little bit more on myself with my clients, I realized that, there was something that some deeper embedded things that I wasn't able to reach. Okay. And there was this one, like, I kept getting confronted with the same question of like, why is it that we know what's best for us? What to do, what to feel, what to think of, or, what behaviors to engage in our relationships or, in at work. But why is it that we still stand in our own way? And why is it that, reason and logic fails to make a dent? Why is it that, talking your way through it is not enough to really transform organically from within, And that is one of those questions that I was confronted with so many times that I just got super curious. And that's when I discovered the subconscious and how that happens to call the shots of 80% of how we think, feel, and behave, on a daily basis. And that blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind that there is this untapped potential within our own minds that is calling the shots of so much of how we feel and behave and, act on a day-to-day basis, which essentially creates our lives, right? And creates success or failure or whatever it is that you want in your life. And how are we not, tapping into this resource, which has so much wisdom, so much truth, and it kind of goes beyond all of those defense mechanisms that we have, which, maybe suppressing it or maybe toxic positivity or just kind of like ignoring certain things. But, the subconscious and our energy, like it never lies. That's what I found. And so that's what got me interested in then, going on to get certified as an integrated clinical hypnotherapist and work primarily with the subconscious mind. And also, it ties in so beautifully with our energetic body. So our chakras, both of them are part of our subconscious, right? And so,
we get caught in this looping thinking, and it is something that we go, why are we in the same situation or seeing the same person with a different face, or why do we keep getting stuck here? And that has to do with our subconscious, correct? And that's that place.
100%. I feel like, so many of my clients come to me for those repetitive patterns that they keep finding themselves in, like, let's say I quit this job, I've started a new job, But now, it's not my manager who is triggering me or bringing out a certain reaction within me, but now it's a colleague. Or, so we keep finding different people wearing different masks, but they're playing the same roles. And the universe is very supportive in that sense, that it's like, hey, you haven't learned the lesson or healed from whatever it is that this is triggering within you. And that's why it just keeps kind of coming up in different shapes and forms. So absolutely spot on. I mean, those repetitive patterns, that's like one of the easiest ways to even spot that something that is happening is subconscious, because a repetitive pattern is 99% of the time something you don't want happening in your life, unless it's extremely positive. But understanding what's at the root of what's causing this, what's the energy, what's the unprocessed emotions, what moment or experience or experiences or belief systems are at the root of, creating these repetitive patterns in your life is so crucial. And that's what subconscious work and hypnotherapy really helps us kind of access and change.
Yeah, because you can see the pattern and you can intellectualize it. But if you can't get in deeper to change that, that's where the healing needs to happen, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd love for you to share who you're working with, not literally, of course, but, the types of clients that you have. You got into a little bit of people are seeing these repetitive patterns, and that can be a trigger that there's something deeper going on. As Kara had pointed out, the same thing, different mass, different people, different situations, same issue. What kind of individuals are you seeing? What is the list of the services that you're providing? And then what is an experience like when you're sitting in the very room that you're sitting in when you're doing these sessions, just so that people can understand that have never experienced a hypnotherapist? Because when you hear hypnotherapy, there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that are like, that seems a little scary to me. Like, what's going to happen? What is it like? I've watched TV. Am I still in the room? Am I not? Like, what does it look like, feel like? So I'd love for you to share all that you provide, some of the themes you're seeing among your clients, and what an experience is like sitting with you.
Absolutely. Those are all great questions, especially given the fact that hypnotherapy, hypnosis is not something that you generally tend to hear of or find. And there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to hypnosis. I feel, media and different kind of, spaces have given hypnosis or being hypnotized a more scary or a more negative kind of outlook. But when it comes to hypnotherapy, I'd love to take you deeper into what the experience feels like and looks like. And, I'm sure you can even add on to that, Rachel. But answering your first question, the kind of clients that I see, they're individuals or couples or groups. I see my clients locally here in like Cincinnati, in Loveland, and also virtually globally. And clients' ages or the kinds of clients really vary a lot, because we all have subconscious minds and we all stand in our way in some shape or form, and we all want to reclaim our power, right? So, I've seen clients as young as, 18 and as old as in their 80s. And it's, it really kind of like ranges through, and, seeing, of course, both men and women. But when it comes to what kind of challenges they'd like to work on, those also vary. But, if I were to kind of list down some that I see happening a little bit more frequently or coming up a little bit more frequently, it's, tackling things like relationship challenges that we're facing in communication or in the energy, in the dynamic of our relationship with our partner. This could be our relationship with our parents. This could be a relationship in any other aspect of life, with a manager, for example. And a lot of the times this brings up certain emotions, certain triggers, certain behaviors and coping mechanisms. Sometimes, you may shut down in a business meeting when you feel a certain way in front of your manager or colleagues, or let's say, in your romantic relationship, you feel that you struggle with emotional reactivity and you realize it's a challenge, and you intellectually and rationally know that it's hurting your relationship and your relationship with yourself as well, but you're not too sure of where it's coming from and how to change it, So those kinds of shifts in relationships is a big one that comes up. Other than that, like dealing with stress, dealing with anxiety, dealing with sleep issues, and all three of these are extremely interconnected. A lot of my clients, a fair chunk have come in for sleep problems. And while they may come in for sleep, like, hey, I can fall asleep very instantly, but I wake up multiple times through the night, or or I have trouble falling asleep, or, there's like different things with sleep. And our sleep is our number one marker of what's going on in the subconscious mind. And if your subconscious is like literally, do you know what happens to like a laptop? Bless you.
Thank you.
So do you know what happens to like a laptop or like a computer when too many tabs are open at the same time, and you can suddenly hear the fan get really loud of the laptop and the tabs start glitching, and you need to like old school press like Control Alt Delete and like like exit all the programs and restart. So you get the picture. Now, when sleep is an issue, our subconscious is basically having too many tabs, too many softwares that are open and glitching. And when we're asleep, our conscious mind, we're consciously asleep, right? So we're no longer awake, but our subconscious mind is very much awake, and it's processing and downloading all the data, all the information, all the emotions, all the experiences from that day that, need to kind of go get uploaded in the hard drive of our mind, the hard drive being the subconscious mind, right? So when our sleep is very disrupted, and it's chronically or continuously very, very disrupted, that basically shows that there's something going on a subconscious level that you may or may not be aware of that needs to be addressed. And so a lot of the times my sleep clients, it's not as if we sit down and we talk about sleep in and of itself. We may eventually get to that, but first of all, we need to start closing those glitchy tabs one by one, so that the subconscious can get some respite and relief, and then sleep automatically and organically becomes better. You know what I mean? So I've gone off on a tangent, and I do that often, but other types of clients that I see, a lot of them come in for processing or kind of moving forward from emotional trauma in their past that may be getting triggered in their present, or maybe still kind of impacting their day-to-day life in some shape or form that they want to kind of really just process. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers a lot. And then there are obviously so many different behavior patterns that may come up that people want to change. And they may have tried consciously, like reading that self-help book or taking, maybe talk therapy, or maybe not having taken talk therapy, either or. But they've tried consciously or chat GPTing it, like in now today's day and age, that's the first place we go to for answers. But we may find the answers. And it's not as if in life we have a limitation of information. We have all the knowledge available to us at a click of a button. But it's the fact that how do we feel differently from within? How do we behave differently organically? That's kind of what we want to go into the subconscious for. So that answers your first question. Now let me kind of go over what kind of services I offer. So I do one-on-one sessions, also with couples, also with groups, and also, with businesses in case there's like a group customized offering, which I always love doing. But I do one-on-one hypnotherapy sessions, and each session, basically takes us a step deeper, closer to whatever goal it is that you want to be, going towards. And then I also do one-on-one chakra healing, chakra clearing, or energy healing sessions, which also is such a great complementary, service to have when it comes to subconscious work, because our chakras are basically energy centers in different parts of our body, which hold on to different kinds of emotions, different kinds of baggage that then eventually blocks them. And the way that I work is that I kind of make the energy work, the chakra work, kind of complement the hypnotherapy. So the energy work, a lot of the times with clients, gives a real insight into what is subconsciously still holding you back. You may not be aware of it. Maybe you think you're over it. Maybe you think you've moved forward. That happened so long ago. Those kinds of things where we tend to invalidate ourselves, but energy never lies, right? And so going into the energy body and really getting those diagnostics of where you stand in terms of the chakras, in terms of how freely is energy flowing through, all 7 of your chakras and beyond, really gives a great insight, and then also gives us an understanding of kind of how to go, what to address in those hypnotherapy sessions. It's all like pieces of the same puzzle coming together.
And I think the chakra readings, if people are like curious about what you do, I think that is such a great place to start, which I would imagine a lot of your clients do start there. Because like you said, you're getting the information and giving it to them of like, this is where things are still stuck for you. And it always is going to resonate. And that's exactly where we started. That's what you provide when you do, public events, is you do these mini chakra readings for people. But I think if you're curious about Zarina's work, that starting there and having that session and you being like, okay, so your crown chakra is open, but your heart is this, or this. And, the different terms that you use when you describe whether something is blocked, or, the different words that you use to describe what's going on. And then people can really, you clear it, or, do what you can and educate someone. And then it's sort of after that of, hey, this is how I can help you deal with these things that are rooted in when you were 5, or are more currently rooted when you were 25. And this is how we can work on this to really fix it or make it better, or, whatever it is.
100%. Absolutely. Thank you for that beautiful explanation. Firsthand.
Yeah.
Experience. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was so interesting because, everyone knows that I love the woo, and you're over there, got someone laying down, they look so relaxed, and you've got your pendulum just over them, and I'm like, what is this girl doing? And I want whatever she has to offer. So, and then now that am a full-time client coming to see you, and all that's happened since that, 10-minute moment together has been absolutely life-changing. I can't, like, I know I'll just keep hyping you up, girl, but you have truly, truly changed my life. It continue to change my life, and I'm just so grateful for everything you do. But, I appreciate you going through what you do so that people just kind of get a sense of like, yeah, I do struggle sleeping, just to kind of give people ideas of, lots of people know what traditional talk therapy is like. Okay, we're going in there to talk about this, and this, but how are you different, and how can you, provide a different experience? I don't want to say elevated. It's deeper. It's just a different experience, and you're getting to similar issues in a different way. And so I'm curious, so I would love for you to also explain, like, someone comes in for a hypnotherapy session. What does it look like? Are we laying on a couch? Are we asleep?
Yes.
What, are you like, is there smoke? Like, what's happening so that people can be like,
Firstly,
okay,
there's no smoke.
There's just smoke.
Firstly, there's no smoke.
It's like the curtains pull
But
and you're like, where am I?
The way I best, I love to describe hypnotherapy is when it's almost like this half wakeful, half sleep like state. Okay. So think about that moment that you woke up this morning and you were in your bed and you were awake, but you were still like somewhere on the boundary of like your dreams or your subconscious and then the conscious, world, and like opening your eyes and re-engaging with the world, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
or even those moments where you're like about to fall asleep. So as you can imagine, those moments where we either have just woken up or we're about to fall asleep, we're technically kind of awake and aware, right? But we're also very relaxed. Our body is very relaxed, and there's like this sense of just calmness overall. And that's usually what hypnosis feels like. In a lot of cases, it can feel like that. But then there are different ways and different forms of hypnosis also, which I'm not going to go into like right here and right now, but this is the majority of the time what it looks like and feels like. Obviously, it shifts. It's like the experience needs to be so customized to you, and it's always so unique to you, to every different client and in every different session, that it's not necessarily the exact same way all the time. Just giving that disclaimer. But regardless, it's just this very relaxed state, and we get into that. I guide you and facilitate you into that relaxed state by using guided imagery, visualization, progressive body relaxation, and different steps, and then that allows your conscious mind to kind of just chill out.
Mhm.
And when it chills out, that's when it kind of also gives permission for us to kind of enter the subconscious mind with the intention of healing, with the intention of whatever your goal is, whatever you want to work deeper on or change within your subconscious. I like to tell my clients that, a lot of the times, like, we are living our lives, just like I was describing, living our lives unconsciously. And that means that we're essentially in a trance because we're at the mercy of patterns and reactions and emotions and feelings that we never consciously chose, right? And so that essentially is a trance. But what we're doing, in this room, in this office, is we're intentionally, going in to break that trance from your everyday life so you can start feeling more peace, more fulfillment, more alignment within yourself and in your life. Because most of the time, what happens is our conscious mind and our subconscious isn't in alignment. And that's where our biggest issues come. And that's, why I essentially do what I do, because consciously we may want to be more calm in a conversation with our partner, but unconsciously we may have a lot of stored anger from past experiences or in this relationship or from other relationships or from our relationship with our caregivers, or maybe everything put together. Right? And so that's when the conscious and the subconscious minds are at loggerheads. They're conflicting with each other. We need to bring them into alignment. So for that, there are, steps that we need to go through so that you can eventually reach that goal of feeling calmer in conversation with your partner.
Yeah.
So it's like lucid dreaming, and you're the guide getting them there. You are helping them to get into the lucid dream state and then to align what needs to come together or what needs to go. Some things need to be released, I'm sure, right?
100%. And it always starts with like a release, right? Because, when we're working with the subconscious, we're trying to change maybe certain patterns, certain behaviors, certain belief systems. But we can't just go in and start, introducing new neural pathways without having created space, because there is stuff that we are unconsciously holding on to that is causing the misalignment.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
like that was spot on, that we want to release whatever needs to be released. And then we want to go ahead and install like new softwares or new programs that are more in alignment with what you want for yourself, in your relationships, and in your life. And, sometimes we feel like this being hypnotized is going to be like an experience where we're like in another world, right? So I just want to obviously, also mention that, being in a trance is something it's a state that we go to on a day-to-day basis, right? So it is a very familiar and an accessible state to be in. Sometimes, clients may come in and they say, this happens like every so often, like once in a blue moon, a client will come in and say, yeah, but I was still awake. And I was like, yeah, I was never going to put you to sleep. Right. Or sometimes, some people would ask like, am I going under now? As if like, they're being like, they're kind of not going to be conscious, but you're very much conscious. You are very much in control. You cannot be convinced to do or feel or believe anything that is not in alignment with your values and morals. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's not like something that is like an experience or a state that you haven't been to before. You've been there, like, when you're half awake or half asleep, or you've just woken up, or sometimes you're driving back home and it's a 30-minute drive and you don't even know where the time went and your mind was wandering. So you are essentially right? So you are essentially in a trance in those moments, but it's just that it's an unintentional trance. Now, in hypnotherapy, we're inducing an intentional trance where your defenses can soften and where we can go into the subconscious mind to get insight, to explore, release, and then, do the needful to help you reach your goal. So that's just, that's just like one disclaimer or one watch out I wanted to give to all the listeners also, especially since, it's an experience that not a lot of people have had. I don't come in thinking that I'm going to go into like the space which I've never been to before. You go there every day. But the intention is very different. It's a very intentional, a very deliberate, healing-focused, growth-focused, goal-focused way. And a lot of the times, like you said, we over-intellectualize our feelings so much. And we kind of can write probably a thesis or like a research project on all the patterns that are going on in our lives and all the behaviors and all the labels and all the things. But, to really feel it and heal from it and release it in a very embodied way, that requires you to be in your subconscious.
And I think we've all seen those TV shows where the hypnotist puts you under and then you cluck like a chicken and you can't help but cluck like a chicken. And that is not what this experience is. That's very much for TV and in an extreme circumstance. You still are very much in control. And I think people need to know that. This is not something being done to me. This is a guided thing to get me where I need to go in order to make those changes. So it can be very powerful for the person. And it's also supportive with having you there.
100%.
Because
100%.
when you go to school, what are the two most important things? Algebra and writing, right? You need to know algebra, which if you're an engineer, that's great. Most people are never going to use it again. Most people aren't writing unless you're a writer, right? Those things are important, but we're not taught how to get into our subconscious. Human beings say, I have these problems. I'm stuck. I can think about it and I see these parts of it and that's it. How do I connect the dots and how do I really get in there to make some change? And that's what you do.
100%. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Kara.
When I first started seeing you, I was very convinced that you were not going to be able to hypnotize me. I was like, Zarina, honey, you're not getting in here, okay? And you have proven me wrong, girl. Day one, you were like, and here we go. And it was like, initially I was like, because again, you have this impression of it in this very false way. And as you were saying right off the bat of like the way that it's marketed is not the reality. And, my experience has been, it's very relaxing. You sit in that so comfortable recliner that you have and I've been aware the whole time, but I would say like, I almost feel like I'm floating to where you get in that very relaxed state where like you can feel your body, but I don't feel like I could lift my arms, but they're heavy to where there's like a film almost around my whole body that's a substance that's keeping me where I'm at, but I could break out of it. But I'm like floating on a cloud of side and just very heavy, but very aware from my mind of what you're saying, because the whole time I'm having to answer you. You're asking me questions, like as you're doing things, or you're trying to get feedback from me of what's going on in my head, because that's the point. We're trying to get into a room and confront something and then release something. So that's been, I don't know how, of course, everybody probably experiences differently, but just for people that are like, okay, but for, me, I was like, this is what it's like for me. It's very comfortable. And you don't want to come back, really. You're like, this is so nice. Unless whatever you dealt with was not great, but you get rid of it. So it's fine. And then you're like, yay, now I feel better.
Who doesn't want to stay in dreamland, right?
Yeah. For real. So one of the things that you had kind of talked about earlier that I wanted to touch on is, as you've done your own healing and as you've been in your practice, you've obviously realized maybe one big truth or many truths that you've come to trust deeply. For me, working with you, I think one of the most empowering truths that I've come to learn from you is that everything is energy. And that so often we hold energy that doesn't belong to us. And that's the point of the work with you, is realizing the energy that doesn't belong to us, that we very often don't realize that we have and that we've been carrying. And that certainly if it's not serving us, which most of the time it's not, and releasing that and getting rid of that. So that has fundamentally changed the way that I have approached life and things that have come up in my life, because I would describe myself as an empath, and I have always been someone that holds more than she should. And this has been so empowering to be able to break it down to its core of, this isn't serving me. I'm not going to carry this. I have a great life. You can have it right back, and you can have it envelop you, and it's not me. So I'm curious, maybe that is one of the principles that you share and give to your clients, or if there's other ones or something you haven't taught me yet that I'm waiting to hear.
No, thank you for sharing that, Rachael, because that is also that is such a huge part of this work, is to kind of really shed and release those layers of conditioning, layers of energy, and all those energetic imprints that simply don't belong to you. And you may have heard me saying this so often that, the number one rule of therapy, any kind of healing, any kind of therapy, any kind of growth, is that we can only deal with our own stuff. We cannot deal with other people's stuff. And I also feel like as women, maybe from a very young age, a lot of us have been taught, or maybe it's been modeled or demonstrated, or just something that we've absorbed, is to take on that, other people's energies, be it in socially, be it in family, be it in gatherings. We tend to really disconnect from ourselves, our truth, our intuition, our voice, and really internalize and absorb energies that don't belong to us. This could be from particular individuals. They could be from society at large. It could be from so many different avenues that we most of the time unconsciously internalize. And so we really, in order to reconnect with ourselves, which is, the crux of the work that we do, and that I do, right? And that's at the crux of, any form of therapy, is to be able to reconnect with ourselves.
Yeah.
We really need to shed those layers of conditioning, those voices that aren't our own.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that, because it's such an important truth. And, it's also a practice that I tell a lot of my clients to do every night, that hey, go through your day, real quick, and think about, or maybe it just comes to you organically, intuitively. Maybe you've taken on some people's energy. Maybe somebody was having a bad day and you took on that energy from them. And these are obviously smaller. This is your daily maintenance, energetic hygiene that you want to practice on a nightly basis. But obviously, when we go further back in our lives, or into certain relationships that have ended, or with our caregivers earlier on in our lives. We take on a lot of stuff from them, which isn't ours to deal with. So absolutely, we need to deal with our own stuff first and foremost. And, just thinking about it in terms of like something that I've learned to or come to trust deeply. A couple of things are coming to mind. I guess the one thing, which is at the core of everything is that healing or transformation is really not about fixing yourself. It's really not about becoming someone different, someone better, but it's essentially really just reconnecting with who you were before you learned to live in this fear and this survival and made it your personality.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we're in this marinade. People are marinated, and this is the way mom and dad used to fight, or this is what my church taught me, or this is how I learned to interact with people at school. And when you have that marinade, then you're soaked in it and you're reacting from that instead of from your true essence, right?
Yes. And the more marinade we have, I love that analogy, by the way, but the more marinade we have, like the more parts of our own self is like inaccessible, right?
Right. Because
The
we're
more parts
drowning
of
in the
ourselves.
marinade.
Exactly. And so this work is not just to remove the marinade, but also get in touch with who is that, like, who you are at the core that you currently aren't able to connect with. You're not
that's
able
important.
to even, that's so important. That's like at the core of it all. Because, a lot of the times, like I've experienced clients where, let's say, like they want to be confident. They want to speak up. They want to be more assertive in their communication, let's say at work, or just, be better at setting boundaries and communicating them and maintaining them. But there is a part of them deep within that feels like, but this isn't the true me. Like I've always been this pushover, or I've always been this, people pleaser. And we tend to over identify with these patterns that helped us survive, that helped us cope. These patterns don't make you bad. They don't mean there's something wrong with you. They have always served, they have served a purpose.
Yeah.
They've served a purpose. So that part of you is not meant to be shamed or judged or criticized. It very much was formed to serve a purpose. But a lot of the times, that pattern or that behavior has outlived whatever threat it was responding to.
Because we're not being chased in the forest by a lion currently anymore. So we don't need to continue to act like we are, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So it's when I talk about, clients who feel like this is not my true nature to be confident, that confidence was there, but it's just a matter of accessing it again. It was always there. It's just cocooned within all these undigested emotions from the past, from various experiences, from various, instances. And only once you release this and shed this can you then find that confidence, that confident nature, that feeling of intrinsic worthiness at the core. Because that is who you are.
Right.
That is who you truly are. It's a matter of reclaiming that.
Well, and the first time, if you were a little girl or a little boy, the first time you spoke up for yourself and you felt like this is who I am and this is what I need to say, if you are shamed or belittled or anything negative from that, you're then going to back that up and develop those defense mechanisms. So the first time you're probably fine. That's who you are. That's what I'm supposed to say and do. But that wasn't respected. I have to change now. I can't be that. I must hide and put the walls up.
And the ripple effects of that. I think one of our first sessions, you gave a very similar story of that, of an interaction between a mom and a son, and exactly her reaction to him in this moment that should have been a very different reaction, and how it has affected him into adulthood, even just being like making decisions at work and the relationships that he has. I mean, it's profound how these, what may seem like very minor moments, how our subconscious latches onto this if we're not like actively trying to be like, that's not mine. That's not, and of course, like before the age of 7, like it's all subconscious. So, that's why like for me as a parent, this work has also been so important for me as I raise my baby, and being so aware of how the things that I say and I do with them is so powerful right now, like the most powerful right now, because they are just absorbing everything. And, my goal is obviously that they don't have to end up in therapy like their mom, later in life. I mean, anything can happen and whatever. They may just want it because it's like maintenance. It's wonderful to have someone to talk about things and go through things and get a second opinion. But, for me, even just more than myself and healing myself has been as a toddler mom of being able to learn what I need to learn and heal what I need to heal in order to be the best mom I can be, so that I'm not imprinting on them things that happened to me and that I'm now at 33 years old frequently dealing with and working on. But it's all, good. But the awareness is so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. As parents, especially, my clients who are parents, like it does kind of really at first shake them up, thinking about how everything is so subconscious, everything is, basically getting hardwired and absorbed, until the age of 7. And then after that, that conscious mind also starts developing, forming, and so on. But it also makes a lot of things make sense, just like the ripple effect that you were talking about, And a lot of the times it's not about who we're essentially blaming for our reactions or for our trauma or for certain things that we felt which were uncomfortable. It's not about pointing those fingers, but it's really about, going back to A, not carrying energy that doesn't belong to you, but B, also, being able to process those emotions in a healthy way, which unfortunately, is not something that we're taught ever. It just isn't. And most of the times it wasn't what maybe our parents' generations were taught either. And so obviously we're observing and internalizing the ways that certain emotions are dealt with, the way that conflict is dealt with, the way that all these things are dealt with. So it's just something that has been happening generation after generation, in certain families more than others. And, obviously with every passing generation, we hope to keep correcting that and keep, teaching how to process those emotions in a more healthy way and to demonstrate that too. But the idea is never of pointing a finger or blaming. It's basically really just taking accountability and ownership of your reactions, of how you're standing in your way and how you can change that.
That's something that I've been doing, especially with my kids. Like if there is any dispute you have with someone or, maybe something comes off the wrong way, it's like allowing that to be without punishing ourselves, but then going, okay, let me take accountability and let me explain to you how that affected me, or let me explain to you how I saw it. And now you know. And I think that that's kind of takes the weight off of that guilt a little bit, because we always think, oh my gosh, what are we doing to the people around us or our children, once we start realizing how energy works. But I think that in the meantime, as we're all doing our own healing, that accountability and just saying, this was my perspective and here you go. And now you know, and you don't have to question it. You don't have to wonder. I'm just giving you my truth as best that I can,
Yeah, absolutely.
Kara is the model mother of how you handle your kids. Like, I'm always like, oh my God, I wish I hope my kids are as awesome as Kara's boys when they're their age. And the way that you are able to communicate with them, and that you've always kept this open line of communication, and that you share what you're feeling. And, to your point, Zarina, of like, the more that we create these new generations, we're trying to right the wrongs of the previous one. And for those of us that are millennials, like, there's so much of just the not understanding of emotions, and even just how taboo therapy is. And like all of us are kind of like almost doing this in like a hidden way and then revealing it later when we're like, I'm a new person. And, you know, not a new person, but like we found ourselves again. You know, but like we got rid of the
Yeah.
shit we didn't need anymore. But yeah, it's just
Mm.
like it is just so important to be so aware of how we operate and how we communicate and get rid of things that don't serve us, and just that along the way it's oftentimes very uncomfortable, but that is what growth is all about. You know, if it was comfortable, we wouldn't work on ourselves, and there's plenty for us to work on as we become wiser and wiser day after day.
Absolutely.
I
So,
couldn't agree
couple
more.
more things.
Thank you for those nice words. The trick is just embrace that you're a hot mess and let everyone know, and then surprise them when you show up in these wonderful ways. Like, I'm a hot mess, but here's my little nugget of wisdom for you. Here's my communication of the day. I think that's how I've gotten through life, actually.
God, love it. Yeah, that's hilarious. So, Zarina, if someone is feeling lost in the woods, so you actually said those exact words, which we love in the Into the Woods podcast, early on, that, you know, you found your work when you felt very lost, and that this has been such a huge, and it's, to me, it's crazy to think that you've ever needed this, because to me, you are like a goddess that is not of this life in this plane. So I am like, I can't even imagine a time in which that you were like,
Oh my
I
goodness.
need this work for myself. I just feel like this has been a part of who you are from the moment you made it Earthside. So for people that do feel like they are lost, we've talked a lot about like what you provide. You know, what would you want them to know as they're considering what they need to help them elevate into the person that they want to be, or refinding themselves again?
Mhm. Well, firstly, I mean, the work is never ending. So I love the compliments, Rachel, but I've got to say that's not the case. That is absolutely not the case. But I'm glad that's the impression I'm giving. But
Wait,
really, the work is always never ending. And I feel like being lost doesn't even need to have those negative connotations, right? Because being lost means that there's something new coming up on the corner. You just can't see it yet, right? And so looking back at all those moments that I was lost personally, I feel like the time right after being lost were some of the best moments or some of the biggest transformations of my life, because I was no longer, repeating patterns. I was no longer like the same old map was no longer working for me, and I had to figure out what the new way of working would be, right? So it's all new and exciting. Obviously, when we are lost, it's not a comfortable experience. It's not a pleasant experience, especially, living in a time where having all the information is so easy. You get it with the click of a button. We have honestly, as a society, lost. I digress, but I genuinely feel like we've lost the capacity for that uncertainty, for the gray areas, for being able to focus on just the next step versus the next 5-year plan. There's nothing wrong with having a 5-year plan. It's fantastic. But at the same time, being lost really serves a wonderful purpose, because it really helps in us brushing up on our ability to ground ourselves and be present, even though we don't know what's to come.
Yeah.
It grounds, it allows us to brush up on, our capacity to just deal with that uncertainty and still show up for ourselves, for what is important, and just make one honest decision at a time until the path kind of appears. So, to your point, I guess like my message to those listening who may be feeling lost overall, or maybe feeling lost in a particular aspect or domain of their life, whatever it might be, I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is so many times we shame ourselves for feeling lost in the first place. And so my biggest message would be, you're not alone, and there's nothing wrong with you for feeling lost. Okay, I'm not going to tell you to look at the bright side and something great is coming. It's right around the corner, because no, that will happen in its due time. And that's not something to make you feel better. But whatever you're feeling is valid and it's okay. But this is not a time to shame yourself for feeling this way or for not having the answers. No matter how old you are, no matter how late you think it is in your life to not have answers, it's absolutely okay. And just take it one day at a time, one step, one honest decision at a time, and lean on those who you trust. And, whatever that showing up for yourself means to you, just do a little bit of that, maybe every day. Whatever that looks like. Maybe one day it looks like having a good cry. Maybe another day it looks like kind of pushing yourself to go out for lunch with a friend. Maybe another day it looks like having a relaxed night at home. Whatever that is, just really reconnecting with yourself, because when you're lost, it's that connection that has kind of, is no longer there. So to reconnect, just those tiny little actions, tiny little ways that you show up for yourself, and leaving shame at the door, because there's no point to shame yourself, because everybody gets lost, no matter how old they are, no matter how experienced they are, no matter how successful they are. We all get lost, and it's okay.
Perfect. I have no further questions. That was beautiful. And I think one of our recent sessions of that's been so powerful for me is that there's nothing wrong with you, as a person. And like you said, it's just things that have been a part of our lives because they were defense mechanisms, and we just need to get rid of it and reconnect with our essence, which is love, which is this soul that's having this human experience that unfortunately along this lifetime has been burdened with things that we didn't even realize we were taking in, and that has spiraled into all of these other things. So it is, like you said, a beautiful thing to be lost, because it just gives us this incredible opportunity to find ourselves or find a new way that's even better, more empowering, or that's enlightening, or just a cool experience. And that's something that I've cherished so much, of just realizing things about myself and learning how to deal with things and the relationships and the power that I've felt in myself as I've done this work with you. Like it's the greatest thing ever to just re-find yourself. And I just love it so much. And I hope that so many people that listen to this will find you and will find this work and will have the same kind of feelings and results, because it's a blessing. It's the greatest feeling.
Thank you.
So with all of my guests, there is one sentence that I need you to complete that goes with what it means to be a Wayfinder and what your message is to those listening based on the work that you do, of how you would complete this sentence. I know I'm finding my way when.
I know I'm finding my way. I make decisions out of alignment and not out of fear or reactivity.
That's beautiful. That's the goal, right?
Yeah. That's the gold standard right there.
It is.
Yeah.
Mic drop. That's all you need to know, people. Just do what she said.
Just make all your decisions in alignment. You're going to be fine. It's going to be great.
You're going to be fine.
Figure
And
out
if you
what
need help,
alignment
go
is.
see Zarina.
Yeah, Zarina will get to the root. I'll do your numerology profile so that you know who you were from the moment you
Yes.
arrived. And then Zarina will fix all the shit that's happened since you arrived. And then you'll be perfect. And then you'll be able to just get through life and be like, hey, I'm here and I'm strong and I'm this goddess now. So everything just bounces off of me. Or if it doesn't, then I know how to deal with it, because it's all just energy.
Or you're not this goddess now, but I've always been this goddess. I've just remembered who I am.
True.
Yeah.
True.
That
Yeah, that's what I
remembering.
really just need to keep in. Yeah, the remembering.
Yeah. Oh man, it was so nice to chat with both of you. This has been like, I think we can continue this conversation for hours, but
Oh yeah.
It's been a good
so
one.
nice connecting. Yeah. Gosh.
Yeah, that's how I found with
That
all of
sounds
my
awesome.
Wayfinders is that you guys are all my friends, which is why it's so easy to talk to you. And your work is just so interesting and so powerful and so complex. And, you know, we have our own stories together, but our stories of how we got here and all that has happened before to bring us to where we are. I don't feel like any person in this space, in this spiritual space, in this healing space, has a simple story to tell. It has absolutely been with just things have happened and it's led us to this way. And not only did we heal ourselves, but we have chosen to heal others. And with that is this responsibility, but it's just this beautiful, you know, empathy we have and are able to share and experience together from our own experiences and, you know, to just help people live their best lives because we know what it feels like to do the work and to have gone through the things. And so, you know, that's why it's so easy to have these conversations and to share. And, you know, I'm grateful for you sharing your story and how you got here. I'm grateful for the work that you do. And I just can't wait for you to get so busy, girl, as busy as you want to be. You're going to start getting some appointments. I so hope and so see because you're just amazing and I love you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm so grateful to be invited here and get to chat with you guys this afternoon. It's been so good.
It's been lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I will put all of your contact and everything about you in the show notes so that people know exactly how to reach out to you. We'll be posting little snippets of this on socials, etc. I typically also send out an email to my subscribers that tell your story, and it's a direct way that they can reach out to you. So just wanted to give you a heads up that those things are coming. The possibility for
Love
people to
that.
connect with you is going to be more than this appearing on people's Spotify accounts. It's going to be spread out across all the things. So
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
you're so welcome.
By the way, Kara, Enchanted Moments is like so close to my house.
Is it?
Yes, and I've never visited. So maybe
You
next time I'll
should.
catch you there.
Absolutely. I'd love to see you there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
Zarina, the
I
number
think I
of
need to. I
times.
think.
Go ahead, Kara.
Go ahead, Rachel. I was
I
going
said
to say, I've done hypnotherapy and it was a really cool experience in the past, but I think I'm going to probably need a new one. So we'll have to connect outside of here as well.
Yes, for sure. I'd love to have you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Zarina, the number of times I have driven from your office to Enchanted Moment, can't count. Because it is literally like 10 minutes and it's all back roads and it's like a beautiful drive. You don't even have to get on the interstate. Yes, you must go to Enchanted Moments. And then the girls at the Book Matters, the independent bookstore on the other end of Old Milford.
Yes. Yeah.
They're amazing. I've had a lot of my events and stuff there and they're great support and they have everything there. So get a new journal,
That's good to know.
etc. Yeah.
Whenever I go there, it's always shut because I generally tend to go that part of town for dinner, or I go to the Governor, which has such amazing food, and
So good.
it's usually shut by then. So one day it needs to happen. I need to go before 5, 6. Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
Yep, we close at 6 except for on
6.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Zarina.
Awesome.
This was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for being one of my Wayfinders. I love you so much. And I will
You too.
look forward
Thank you.
to seeing you next time for another session.
All right. All right.
Talk
Thank you,
soon.
Sarah. Thank you,
Bye.
Rachel.
So nice to see you.
You too.